Okay, I, like, 2 minutes ago, possibly even less, literally just finished watching Sonny Boy. I watched another 4 episodes yesterday, ended up not doing a video on episodes 5 through 8. Just watched the last four, and. Oh, sorry, there's a fly on my butt. I'm left with the same crippling emptiness, but yet weirdly optimistic feeling I had when I finished Synecdoche, New York. Now that I know how to actually pronounce the fucking title of that movie, by the way. Uh, Symphogear definitely has some competition of like being the best anime I watched this year. I have genuinely one thing about Sonny Boy that I don't like, and I had maybe two. For me, the one big one is just that, yeah, like that one art style decision where sometimes you just won't see a character's face and it's not an in between frame or someone way in the background. It wasn't a style choice I really liked. It very often took me out of the scene whenever I would see it, and it was something like every now and then it happened. You're like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird. Excuse me, it happens pretty often. Didn't love that. Also, at about the halfway point of the show, when a good chunk of characters just kind of go on the arc, you just don't see them anymore for the rest of the show. And that's one of those I'm like, on the one hand, I don't mind it because I still liked a lot of the shit that was going on. But with some of them, like Hoshi in particular, I'm like, I really wanted to see more of some of these characters. Like, I loved Hoshi's whole like burgeoning cult leader vibe, and it was something that was super fucking interesting to me. And then in the entire second half of the show, that like nope, you just don't see him anymore. Like Hoshi who? I'm like, oh okay, that's a little disappointing. But I still loved what I got in the second half of the show. So I'm not like, man, that sucks. It's like, it sucks, but it's by no means fucking deal breaking. Um, if I were to say what I liked about the show, it would then be short version fucking everything. I love the way the show looks. Again, aside from the weird face thing, it looks like something Hosoda would make, just visually. Like watching the first couple episodes, I was like, this did Hosoda make this? No, he didn't. Okay. And then Clay came in and watched like an episode or two with me. He's like, did Hosoda make this? I'm like, no, but like I get what you mean. I thought the same shit. The soundtrack is great. Like the final episode feels less like an episode of a show and more like a collection of music videos. I don't want to say stitched together because it makes it sound like it doesn't work, because it works incredibly fucking well. I love the last episode. Um, but it is just like, here's like a song playing over some shit. Now here's another song playing over. It happens like 3 or 4 times, and it just works the entire fucking episode. Like I've said before, there's no intro. There's an ending song that just plays over the credits, and it's not even like a credit sequence. It's like, oh, here's the credits, and then here's the song that's playing. And in the last episode, it's an acoustic version of the song, and it's like, I liked the song throughout the show, but the acoustic version just sounds like so raw and emotional, and I'm like, this is not helping my mental and emotional state after watching this. I feel devastated. Again, I feel very all over the place, but all in a good way. Again, fucking shout out Synecdoche, New York. Obviously, I did not watch the show in one sitting. I watched four, four, and four. Because, like I had said when I watched the first few episodes, like, I kind of have other shit I want to do today. I feel like I could keep watching. I want to keep watching, but I'm gonna stop and try to do some other stuff. I felt like I had a really fucking productive day yesterday. It was great. But when I look at a lot of the other shows that I've been watching in like since the end of July, which most of which was Cores of Symphogear, which watch Symphogear, it's great. I would watch like 2 to 3 episodes, and then for the most part be like, okay, I'm kind of good. I can go a day or two without watching more episodes. Like I like the pace that I'm having. To me, there were two exceptions to this. One was the last season of Symphogear, because I specifically said I was going to binge it, so I did. But I felt like, yeah, if I was doing like 2 to 3 episodes a day, I would have been fine. And watching Witch from Mercury, which I was really getting into with those last few episodes, I was like, I kind of have some other shit I want to do, but I really want to watch more. I had to pry myself away from watching more Sonny Boy. I was so invested because I had no idea what the fuck was going to happen. Oh fuck, I was talking about stuff I liked about the show, and I'm on a completely different tangent. But it kind of works though. It's like, because to me, I didn't know where it was going, but I was excited to know where it was going. I loved the way it looked. I loved the way it sounded. I loved the premise and what they were doing with it. It is a group of kids and their school, like not just like the literal school building itself, gets isekai'd, and them trying to figure out like, okay, where are we? Why are we here? And now some of us are getting superpowers. What are our powers? How can we use them? And then the main character's ability, Nagara, is that he can shift, like he can essentially open worlds into other worlds. He could open doors into other worlds. I don't know why I said worlds into other worlds. That didn't make any sense. And so they start using that, and you do get to see other worlds. And then in these other worlds, they have their own unique rules. And this is what happens in this world. If you break it, blah, blah, blah. If you break this one, blah, blah, blah. You have to keep playing along. And like, yeah, you do get a decent amount of worlds with different visual styles, different rules, different vibes. Like, this is really fucking fun. I like exploring. Episode 4 is about invisible monkeys playing baseball. Like, how can you not have fun watching this show? And then you get to, what was it? It was like episode 7, I think, which is the episode with the ants that aren't portrayed as ants. You just think they're regular people. But I was like, wait a second. They're paid in sugar rations? That's kind of fucking weird. They're eating like worms and shit. That's kind of weird. And then when he's like, yeah, like we're just worker ants, like do what we gotta do. I was like, oh my god, the ant farm! Oh, I didn't even realize it. I'm so fucking stupid. Of course he's an... The fact that I can say with a straight face, yeah, I'm fucking stupid for not picking up on it. Of course he's an ant right now. And it makes perfect sense within the context of the show. You know you're watching something unique. Like, I feel like Sonny Boy is just unbridled creativity in the best possible fucking way. It's awesome. Episode 8 is, I want to say his name is Yamabiko. The dog. I believe that. Actually, I know I wrote his name down. Yeah, it is Yamabiko. I just wanted to make sure. The dog who used to be a person but is now a dog because he transformed into a dog because he wanted to make his friend happy. Because Sonny Boy. His backstory is really fucking sad. The sight of, like all these people he knew, like having the tumors coming out of their body and like the massive red eyes and shit is terrifying. It's beautiful at the same time. It's great. I don't remember if it was that episode in particular or if it was like just kind of thinking about it more, where I started to really have my interpretation of what the show is about. Because watching those first few episodes, part of why I was so intrigued, like I keep saying, is I have no idea what this is or where it's going. At first, it's fun isekai time, and then it's Lord of the Flies, and then it kind of stays Lord of the Flies, but then it starts talking about, like, the power of God, and, like, we have to build an ark because we need a savior because something is coming, and then a dude shows up spreading pestilence, and his name is War, and if you kill War, you then bring death, and God is the principal of the school. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? But I feel like I'm following it perfectly well, but also, what the fuck is happening? And then you get, like, the halfway point, the end of episode 6, where everyone is able, they don't go home, but they see their homes, and they see that all of them have graduated. They haven't really been isekai'd. And they're like, oh no, we're no longer home, we're here. No, no, no. Life is still going on without you. You're what's being left behind. The best way I can explain it, because like the way I understood it, and I wasn't sure how it worked until a later episode, is if you've ever played the game Soma, it's losing the coin flip. When it's like, okay, like there's the version of you that can live happily ever after, and there's a version of you that's going to get screwed. You lost the coin flip. You're the version that got screwed. Then there's, I don't remember which episode it was. It was one of the ones I just watched. It was either episode 9 or episode 10. I think it was episode 9 was kind of hinting it. This is how it works. Episode 10 explained it. That Mizuho's power, the Nyamazon, which I fucking love, by the way, is not just I can order things and I get them. It is my cats make copies of things. And we are the copies. Somehow, a combination of Nagata's power of finding worlds and Mizuho's power of making copies somehow combined and made an alternate world with copies of all the people in their class. That's how I understand it, because it does mention that like her power had manifested before they had left, or before they went adrift. You have Nozomi dying in episode 10, which is a really interesting scene. It's like she falls, and Asakaze is like trying to save her, but he doesn't. And to me, it's a little unclear if it's like he tried to save her and then just kind of went, no, I don't think I will, and decided not to. Or if it was his power at that moment just didn't work. Because there's something where like it cuts to the principal, it cuts to God saying something about like the nature of like, isn't it kind of weird that you guys got powers completely out of nowhere? Almost making it sound like the power can be very fickle, or it's like, yeah, easy come, easy go. The implication being, yeah, it's gone now, you can't use it. On the other hand, I don't remember her name. Was that Tsubasa? The girl with the broken arm that can read minds, which fantastic episode, by the way. Like, every fucking episode of the show, which is like, mwah, fantastic. She's like, wow. It was like, after she saw that moment, she's like, I don't know him after all. With the implication kind of being that, piece of shit that Asakaze might be, he wouldn't let someone die, but here he did. But also she liked him because he could be such a mean person. So maybe it was genuinely he tried to save her and then was incredibly vulnerable in his head about it. And that made her go, oh, he's not as mean-spirited as I thought. I'm a little unsure. But she dies, and then the first few minutes of episode 11, I think this is another music video section, is Nagata and Mizuho preparing like her wake. I didn't cry, but I was so devastated watching that sequence. It was great. Now, I know I had said, talking about, what I think of the show, what I think the show is about, and I wasn't getting to that. I was kind of talking about a bunch of other shit, but a lot of that other shit to me is kind of relevant to it. I feel like the big inspiration for Sonny Boy was COVID. And there's just a lot of kind of little minor things that started adding up to me as I was getting to and through these later episodes. Number one, while COVID was going on, while we were in a pandemic, we were supposed to be under lockdown. It's the idea of you can't go anywhere besides home. And getting to the point where you get so sick of being home, you're getting that cabin fever where you want to be able to go anywhere but home. But then when you get that, sorry, I knew what I was trying to say, but in my brain it wasn't coming out well. So it was like I was having to process and the fucking gears were turning, but steam was coming out and not anything productive. I feel like the whole exploring worlds aspect was a major, was heavily inspired by lockdown. And like I was saying, that feeling of wanting to go anywhere but here. But then as the show goes on, very, very quickly, I might add, like around like, I don't know, like episode 3, 4, it becomes cool. Like, this is cool that we can see other places, we have powers, but we want to go ahead and get back home. And like, even though you can get to a point in your life where you don't want to be where you are, maybe you don't quite want to be who you are, you're going to miss it. There's the fact that they talk about death quite a few times. Like, it's almost this looming specter. You got, like, when everyone sees themselves graduating, Nozomi doesn't, because she, like, her in that world is dead. And she's like, she even sees her own fucking grave. She sees like a funeral for herself. In episode 11, when Rajdani comes back to hang out with Nagata and Mizuho, excuse me, he talks about this person that he met in another world, like throughout his own travels, and how this was a person who had become so obsessed with the concept of death. They kept running experiments on themselves, on other people, essentially to find out, like, how do I get to a point where it sticks? You have the fact that Nozomi died at the end of episode 10, like, pretty over the head. And then there's episode 8, again, Yamabiko's backstory, where not only are a lot of people dying in his backstory, it's from a disease, it's from this pandemic that they have no idea how to cure. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and they can't ignore it, and he's losing people. It was like that. It was like, okay, that's a very strong potential indicator of really what inspired this show. When it comes to the ending, I had something about like how this all kind of connects as well, but I had lost it and I don't quite remember it. And it bothers me that I don't quite remember it. But I feel like, well, that was a big inspiration for the show and some of its elements and some of its themes. I feel like the actual themes are... Oh, that's what it was now. It's about how the world kept going, even though there was a pandemic, even though a lot of people were still under lockdown. The world for us, like for the people in lockdown and shit, was static. And that's what the This Worlds always are. They talk about how they're static, how they have these specific rules, but things don't really change. Things don't evolve. They're stale. But outside, if you're able to go back home, if you're able to go back to normalcy, things will flow again. Things can evolve again. And when you go back out into the world, you're gonna have your experiences from lockdown, but you might not be the same person. Because going out in there, the world might drag you back down. Like, it might be really easy to fall back into old habits or into your former personas before you really didn't have like the pressures or like all that kind of shit from outside. But it's still better because you have the opportunity to grow and not to stagnate. That's what I feel like the show is about. And yeah, like by the end, only 2 of them are able to go back. Because honestly, at that point, they're the only 2, aside from Nozomi who had died, they were the only 2 who wanted to go back. Nagata and Mizuho. And their lives aren't the best. Nozomi is still there, but she's not with Nagata anymore. Like, she's with Asakaze. He's working like a dead-end job that he really kind of fucking hates. It doesn't seem to be treating him very well. Like, he's not necessarily happy. And Mizuho doesn't have the cats anymore. One of them had passed away. Like, yeah, things evolve. And not always the way you want them to. But you have to take the bad along with the good. Because that's what life is. It isn't something that is just static. It is going to keep moving. And you kind of have to roll with that. But that's what being human is all about. And I was reading a comment because I was listening to the acoustic version of the ending song. And what someone had said I thought was really interesting is like, yeah, in like the first 11 episodes, It's the studio version of the song, like when they're in this static world, and how, it's a lot more refined and a lot more professional sounding. But then in the finale, when they're back in the human world, it's not that anymore. It's acoustic, it's raw, it's emotional, it's more human. And I liked that a lot. I was like, that's really fucking fitting. Also, can I just say the actual like section when the two of them are like running to the world and they're like going through all these like wormholes and shit. It's a music video segment. It's a damn good music video. It looks so good. It's so pretty. The music's so good. It show's fantastic. Like I said, like it makes you optimistic. It's like, yeah, that is the beauty of what life is. It is something that changes. It is something that evolves. We as people can grow, and we can become better than the person we were yesterday. It also leaves you kind of empty because you're like, well, yeah, it's like you left a world where you had powers and there was all these possibilities, and then you came back home where everything was severely limited. Great, but it works for me. And it's like, it's something when it comes to isekai that I don't tend to care for in the genre. Because a lot of the ones that I have watched or read, it's usually watched, it'll be character gets isekai'd, and they don't really talk about their home life. It's either just like, cool, I'm here, I want to stay here, and I'm never going to talk about home, or it's like, I want to go back, without really delving into like, what is it about your home that makes you want to go back? Because like, for example, it's like if I was isekai into like a fantasy world, I could like fly, I had wings, I had like all the kind of cool shit. There's a good question about whether I would want to come back. My general thing would be yes, I would, because like this is where my family is, this is where my friends are. I have strong ties to planet Earth. But maybe I would have really strong ties somewhere else too. And like that idea of which world do I like more? Because if I go home, like there might be some things here that I'm leaving behind as well. That's super interesting to me. And I love seeing stuff like that get really explored. But it's not something I see really get explored very often. And so the fact that in this show there is that constant sense of like, well, we want to go back, and then it gets to a point where these other people are like, we don't really want to anymore. Like, I kind of get it. And especially when you see what happens when the two main characters get back, it's not great, but that makes it more realistic. It makes it more human, and to me, I loved that. I think it's like I think I've said this before. Like I have my own isekai thing that I'm working on, and it's not the VN project, although I might turn it into a VN because it would work really well as a VN. I don't know why I was doing that with my fingers. I like talking with my hands. Where to me that's a really important aspect of the story is characters talking about, do we want to, like some characters saying, I want to go home, here's the reasons why, and like actively talking about it. You have other characters saying, no, we don't want to go home, and since it's all or nothing, we're going to actively stop you, and these are the reasons why we want to stay. And even the main characters get to some points where like, I wanted to go home at first, and now after things have happened, I'm scared of what's gonna happen when I return. I don't really know what I prefer. And it's like, I really love that kind of shit. This to me is like this easy fucking recommendation. It's only 12 episodes. Go see it. You can watch it in a weekend. You can like marathon it in a day, like 2-3 days. Please do. Like I said, like there's two things I don't like about the show, and even one of them is like, yeah, I mean, it's a little disappointing that a lot of the cast is just kind of gone halfway through, but the rest of it is still really fucking good, and it works. The show is beautiful. Life is beautiful. go experience both of them.